a little forced, but let's fucking see what happens. Let's go! Hello, everyone. What a season finale we had. I just slept on after watching last night's episode, and I'm just going to get it right out of the way. I definitely enjoyed the episode. I think it was like, and I'll be honest, it was like a 90% hit, 10% miss, maybe less than 10% miss for me. And it was pretty consistent with every character's storyline throughout the episode. I liked, and then they just had like one or two things in the episode that I thought either didn't seem very consistent, just seemed a little goofy, or like I'm curious how it's going to play out as the series goes along. And so I'm just going to give initial reactions to the episode, what was kind of going through my mind while I was watching it, and what I think as far as implications for the characters going forward. And maybe not even just going forward. I'm just going to react to like what happened to this episode, because there's so much that we can theorize like about the future that I feel like it might just be a waste of time to try and do it all in one, because otherwise this will be an hour and a half long video, because they've been getting close to an hour. So I think I'm just going to go over like their storylines, skip through the video here with it in the background, talk about favorite scenes, things that happened, and that's how I'm going to go about this episode. So yeah, if you're new to my channel, I am someone that's read all the books, someone that likes the show, has been critical of it. I was a not season 1 finale enjoyer. I really thought they brought it around at the beginning of this season, and they've been building up, building up. I thought this was a satisfactory season finale. I wish I'd never read the books personally, because I feel like I would be able to enjoy what happened in this one a lot more. But at the same time, I enjoyed it, with the caveat of there was just a few things that made me kind of go, huh. So I'll get into those things in this episode, but I'll also be talking about the things I like. Unfortunately, fresh in my brain are the things that I didn't love as much, but as we go through the video, I'll be talking about all the things I did like. Example being, I honestly like the change of Rand just knifing the shit out of Turok and walking around him. Thought that was a little more on brand. Obviously, the way things are set up in the book for where Rand is, it makes more sense maybe for him to get in the sword fight. But in this situation, doing that, I thought made sense, and honestly, I actually liked it. So, if people hated that, you might, I don't know, maybe this is the video for you, maybe it's not. Like, I'm not sure I'm so keen on the dragon thing at the end of the episode, but like I said, we'll get into those. Okay, so they are continuing this thing where we get flashback scenes to Lews Therin at the end of the season, and this one was them sealing Ishamael away. And first off, as you can see, I put it up here, the depiction of men and women channelers working together, forming this giant circle in order to seal them away, pretty fucking dope. This one I actually like. And then the rest of the scene was pretty good, with the old tongue, them talking, and then they reintroduce and kind of reinforce this idea that the dragon and Ishamael have been going back and forth for many lives, and that this is kind of a cyclical conflict, and it just keeps happening and happening, which is something that they build on later in the episode, with Ishamael basically throwing in the towel and just saying he's going to kill Rand in this episode so they can just start over again, because he's got nothing but time. Also introducing the idea that he just hates being alive, and he'd rather just break the wheel, fuck the Dark One, and just be gone, done with it. So this was a pretty good introduction. Not a big action sequence or anything, but a lot of exposition for Ishamael's motives and giving us a little more Lews Therin. So they gave us the full intro on this episode. Yes, I fucking love it. I should stop swearing, it's gonna ruin the video, but damn, I really like the intro on this, and I'm glad they brought the full one back for the finale. Okay, so our first scene is with these white cloaks, and I'm not gonna lie, I think the white cloaks in this episode, every scene the white cloaks had was a hit. This setup one where it's the two Bornhalds, and basically Old Man Bornhald is saying maybe we can't win this fight, but it's basically no one else came to help. We have the light on our side. We can do this, which is a reoccurring theme for the White Cloaks in this series, that they just believe with the aid of the light they can accomplish their mission. And I think Dane is the son. Dane is sitting here thinking, that sounds crazy. They got all these folks up there that can channel and 10,000 dudes. How are we supposed to do this? But I think this was a pretty good setup. It shows the commitment of the Children of the Light, and maybe I should just get into all the Children of the Light scenes throughout the whole episode, because I thought they were all a pretty good hit. I actually really liked the whole father and son moment of Joffrey basically giving this information to Dane about how when no one answered, they came. And they also, one thing they do in this episode is they reinforce the idea of the Sanchan being slavers. I feel like the book series kind of danced around this topic, but like, let's be real, they're fucking slavers. So I'm glad they're at least using some more heavy terminology for that, because there's implications later in the series that may come up with those terms. They do kind of more plain stake out. They've been teasing the whole prophecies of the dragon thing for a few episodes now, but Dane literally just spits it out for us, basically saying, you know, to the audience, explaining how the prophecy is going to work about the dragon coming to Falm's time of need and being proclaimed in fire over the city or whatever. And obviously this is a change up from the books, but in order for pacing to work out and for this to kind of happen, I don't think this has big implications on the series. The only thing being, with the change of location, it doesn't give an automatic like army at Rand's back. So that'll be an interesting shakeup, maybe for some later book things when he would need more forces dedicated to him in order to swing some shit. So that'll be an interesting how they go about that. Hopefully they have a plan for that. But anyways, more into the White Cloaks. Did anyone else see the mist way up at the top right of the screen and think somehow that was gonna be like Pod and Fane, or something like that, like some book things? Because I did for a second, and then obviously it ends up being this White Cloak charge, which was interesting to say the least. I don't know how in this dry, arid kind of climate, maybe where the wind blows and shit, they could have, especially next to the ocean, they could make the smoke thick enough. But they do, and so basically they use that smoke to cover their cavalry charge, which, I mean, the theoretics of it, it was kind of badass, even though it didn't make a whole lot of sense. So I don't know. I think I'll let it slide. So for the most of the episode, there really isn't a whole lot of like extended scenes or exposition with them. They're just kind of the chaos that persists throughout the episode, but consistent things that are in each scene. The costume design is really good. I thought mostly like the sword fighting with them was pretty good. It had an appropriate amount of like kind of bloodiness into it without just being like a gore fest, because it didn't really need to be. And then like they have the catapults that come in that fuck up the tower, and I remember seeing those in the previews and wondering how they were going to use those. So their strategy in here, you know, pretty solid. I would say it's a kind of interesting that the Falm and the defenders would just kind of let this happen. But I guess if you were to argue in favor, it would be that maybe Ishamael and them let it happen to let this play out. You know, because how the hell would they just see that fog rolling up and just not react to it? But anyways, that's aside the point. Really good costume design. I think when they're like storming through the streets and like it's chaos, I thought the scenes were done really well. It really felt like kind of intense, and they do a really good job of that with these White Cloaks in this episode, just having them be like the absolute chaos. I really like this scene with the two Bornhalds and Valda walking together like towards this archway, and just everyone like trying to like him just calling out orders and like telling people to pick their weapons up, and it's like he's like, did you not trust in the light, son? And it really feels like these are the good guys at this point in story. They're here to save the day, even though obviously we know that they don't feel very well towards channelers, but like from the outside perspective, looking at these, if you were like a citizen in this town, like they seem like heroes, and you would probably side with them if you heard bad things about the tower. So keep that in mind. Okay, so and it all comes down to basically, obviously, we have the scene where Valda is with Perrin, and unfortunately, Hopper passes, which I'll cover later in the video. But first off, why did after he kills Hopper and Valda is like not being attacked anymore, did they just walk away from Perrin laying on the ground? Regardless, Perrin comes back out and kills Joffrey and Bornhold in revenge, and Dane obviously sees that and just snaps. And this was a pretty powerful one. I actually really liked the Dane Bornhold actor in this episode, the way his lines and stuff. I thought their stuff was written really well. The first encounter with him and Perrin felt a little clunky, but all this stuff felt pretty good, especially when we had him like fighting back to back at the beginning, almost like maybe you're not terrible, or like friend of a friend and enemies around, or enemy of my enemy. And that's obviously gone at the end of this episode because Perrin just shellacks his dad. He sees it, and then I wish Horn Uno didn't come down and like stop things, because I would have liked to see how it like kind of played out. Obviously, they're not gonna have a blood fight now, but his boys drag him away, and it just sets up this probably pretty big conflict of the White Cloaks with Perrin, because they're not going to be happy that he just killed the commander of the Children of the Light, who somehow just let, I guess, Perrin run up on him and just smack him in the chest. But maybe he thought he was a friendly after he was just fighting with Valda. I don't know. But regardless, pretty good White Cloak arc in this episode, and really good Dane Bornhold exposition, getting his character. I thought this did a good job of making his anger towards Perrin convincing, and making the White Cloaks actually seem like a pretty big threat. And overall, I was pretty happy with everything they did in this episode. So I am going to move on to our next chapter. So Moiraine and Lan have their own kind of side arc in this episode, because Lanfear just boots them out of that waygate with the least effort possible. And basically, essentially, the idea is she kicks him out with the idea of them raising the banner of Rand being the Dragon Reborn. And in those two's little plot line, they finally, I thought we were done with it, but I guess I didn't realize she hadn't unmasked the bond yet. She finally unmasks the bond with Lan and lets him back in, and they have this heart-to-heart moment. And while it was very cute and stuff like that, I'm definitely happy for this to hopefully now be at a close. I said that last episode when I thought it was at a close, but I'm saying it again this episode. Now, I hope this arc is at a close, because I don't think I will ever 100% agree that it was the best use of screen time. But going forward, let's just move on with the Dream Team. So they go to the outside of Falm to essentially do the banner raising. Whether or not they're going to do it or not at the time, I don't think they know. But these dudes come out and attack them, and so we get our Lan being badass scene. But the way it comes about just feels like someone just kind of wrote it off like last second, didn't think about it too much. I mean, all these guys, they're coming in one by one, spaced out, and Moiraine's standing like 15 feet away from Lan. And for some reason, the archer shoots at Lan, not Moiraine, not paying attention. And these guys are all just 1v1ing Lan. And like, obviously he's dispatching them, but it was cool to see him fight and do things, but at the same time, it felt very just not, I don't know. It didn't feel great. All the channeling Moiraine was doing at the time, though, was pretty damn good. The special effects for it and everything, and with the birds flowing around, and like how it looked going through the water, and like the explosions leaping from ship to ship, all that looked awesome. The CGI was great. The practicality of it, and how I'm curious how, like, I guess maybe Moiraine has a little bit of a power buff. I know she's supposed to be one of the more powerful channelers, but at the same time, like, I don't think they're supposed to be able to channel from a very far distance away to be able to do that. and none of the Soldam or Demon. I think obviously somebody senses it last second, but the fact that she's able to like blow up all of those ships without anybody reacting seemed a little quirky, and I don't think they're supposed to be able to channel from that far away unless they're like crazy strong. Um, so that was a bit suspect to me. I feel like that was just like, hey, we need this to happen. Figure out any way to write it and not really think about the logistics of that. So their two plot lines, unfortunately, these two, probably not my favorite of the episode, just because they don't have as much going on. It's kind of a conclusion of a storyline I wasn't too uh, fond of, and then it has this end piece where I won't get into the dragon part. I'll save that for the end of the episode, where she does the weave for a literal sky dragon from 1.5 miles away. But anyways, yeah, so they figure things out. But the part of them like just acting together when she gives him the bond back, that was good. Definitely felt a lot of emotion there, but just unfortunately these two's little storyline was a kind of a miss for me in this episode. Let's talk Nynaeve and Elayne. They have a pretty solid set piece in this one. It's followed pretty closely to what their book plan was, where they get this now their Damane, and essentially they introduce the idea that all of the Damane can channel in this episode. And so she puts the collar on the other one, and essentially they're going to use her to camouflage their way up to the tower to try and save Egwene. And these two kind of rely more on just their ability to act in this episode, which they are both good actors. And I predominantly liked everything. I don't think I had any negative things about what went on with these two throughout the episode. There's that part where Nynaeve just pushes the arrow through Elaine's leg, and then she just gets up and hobbles along. That was interesting to say the least. I guess Elaine's got that dog in her, and for the most part, I don't think there's too much to say about these two other than good, faithful, good acting, good storyline. There's the one scene where their Damane dies and everything gets blown up. That was pretty intense, and definitely just overall liked what was going on. I almost forgot to talk about when Nynaeve is basically interrogating this Damane to find out where Egwene is. This was intense. And just the way she talks about how all she has to do is push, and what did she say? Something about making her mother regret kissing her the first time she kissed her father or something like that. Damn, this was good shit, and it definitely can play into that whole thing of Ishamael thinking that maybe some of the kids will turn to the dark, but this just intensity with Nynaeve is something that I remember when I read the first book. I was like, damn, is she gonna go to the dark side? I mean, obviously, or she's just loves her friends and wants to save Egwene, and this monstrous piece of shit doesn't want to be seen in the collar, because then people will know that it works on her. So, of course, hypocrite. Oh God, I hate the Sanchan. But anyways, this little interrogation piece was very, very good and intense, and just you can kind of see Elaine's reaction of like, oh shit, good stuff, good stuff, good stuff, well written. One thing they do a really good job of is showing the emotional toll of the battle going on through this Nynaeve and Elayne like walking through the city. These scenes, you got just the absolute chaos. The dude's being dragged on his horse across the ground, people crying, bodies under rubble. So I think they chose to show a lot of that chaos through these guys making it their way through the city. And I think that was a really good decision, because it definitely opens you up to the dark side of this battle. And I think Nynaeve is taking all this in, seeing all this death that comes from battle, and this may lead to her making some of her character choices going forward. And then also, I'm really glad that the dude that headshotted or neck shotted her Damane or whoever. I'm glad that that guy isn't the one that shot at Elayne, because he just hit her in the leg instead. So props to him for having dog piss aim. But working together in like a Freak the Mighty kind of thing, since Nynaeve can't channel but she can walk, Elayne can channel but can't walk, they work together to get to the top, and we get this cute little scene with Elayne Tricond hovering over young Randall Thor's half-dazed body as she's backlit by the sun over his eyeballs. I'm sure this isn't any type of visual storytelling or anything like that. This was kind of cute. Not gonna lie. The stuff going around it, I have things to say about, but this scene in a vacuum, very cute. I guess we'll dive into Matt's arc this episode. This was one that I definitely think I enjoyed most of it, if not all of it, as we went on. It starts with Padonfane basically delivering the dagger to Matt because Ishamael wants Matt to stab Rand and inflict the wound with this dagger. And so the idea is they bring it to Matt, and so they can tempt him to touch the dagger, except young Matrim has his brainwave on this date. So he fashions it up onto this spear to tie it to the spear, and basically that way he doesn't have to touch it, but he can still have the full effects of it. I'm curious how that loophole is going to play out in the future, if that'll stand, but pretty good thinking on his feet. And guess what? This knife just so happens to be a lockpick with its dirty evil abilities. I'm kind of curious how that works out, but you know what? It's just, it's Matt Cawthon. If he didn't have this magic dagger that could open up doors by cutting through the locks, he would figure something else out anyways. So I guess I'm not going to get too hung up on that because it's just the character and the way he's written. He would figure it out. Anyway, moving on. So Matt basically goes on his Captain Jack Sparrow runaway and figure things out kind of timeline first part of this episode, when we have this cute reintroduction to Perrin. I thought this played out pretty good. Obviously, they're in a very tense situation and they run into each other. So, I mean, they don't have 8 hours to sit down and grab a beer. Felt pretty good for me. I was satisfied with it. But essentially, Matt meets up with these guys and he's introduced to the Horn of Valir, needing to get to Rand. And so now the horn is handed off to Matt Cawthon. Interesting. And he basically, he doesn't want to leave his friends behind, but he knows he has to get to Rand, so he books it and heads up to the tower to try and get the horn to Rand. But I don't know, him not wanting to leave his buddies behind, how happy he was to see Perrin, it was a lot, and I liked it. And I'm happy we are getting more Matt development. Matt is a hero of the horn. He blows the Horn of Valir, and the gang shows up, and Arthur Harkwing, I assume that's who this is, with the wings and stuff on his helmet, and he's kind of at the forefront, is like, we fought by your side time and time again. So Matt is not just the horn sounder, he is a hero of the horn in this age. The change, obviously, I think I am okay with it. I mean, Matt has all these battle moves and stuff that just come out of nowhere. It makes sense for it to, at least because we've been introduced to people being respun out in the wheel. I guess it kind of makes sense for him to be a hero of the horn and be one of these people to have all this battle knowledge, shit like that. Honestly, maybe I'll regret saying this, but it makes more sense than the way it is in the books, unless he is supposed to be a hero in the books and I just missed that. This is a little bit better. And then I think I'll talk about the Horn of Valir stuff as a whole when I'm done talking about Matt, because there's a lot I had to say about that as well. But regardless, Matt blows the horn. He kind of looks a little awkward when he's getting his memories back. He's like, I don't know. It did look a little goofy, but regardless, he remembers, and then he gets all these battle skills back. You see him as he's going across the bridge with his pole staff. He's running across. This is all in slow-mo. Hey. Anyways, So they have this thing where they run across the bridge, and he is just whirling that evil pole staff around, and that's pretty gnarly. Hopefully that he's got this stick and knife thing. It doesn't mean he's not gonna get his other weapon later. Maybe it does. I don't know. I guess it's not that big of a deal, but still. Oh no, there's prophecy stuff that goes along with it. I don't know. Anyways, cool battle scene. They fight them, and then Matt makes it up to the top, and he thinks that he's gonna help save Rand.
He's right,
And he's coming up behind him, and he sees him, and he goes to help him, and he randeth through. I mean, as soon as you saw this, you could see it coming from a mile away. But damn. So that's pretty fucking heavy. Obviously, Matt is devastated by this, and I thought it was like they did a good job of him showing the grief, and all he wanted to do is help his friend, and it didn't work, and he's gonna feel so much guilt from this. I mean, obviously, Rand is healed, thankfully, but damn, this was heavy, and overall, very happy with Matt Cawthon's story arc in this episode. Few obvious choices from the storytelling aspect, but it was pretty damn good. He looked a little goofy right after he blew the horn of Valyr, but whatever. That is what it is, and that's probably personal preference. Some people probably thought it was badass. The fighting, that was badass, though. I will say that. Damn cool. Perrin had a great episode in this one. He's been all but non-existent throughout this season, pretty much. So to have a little bit more for him was pretty good. We see him, basically him and the maidens approach the city. They get in, and immediately he is just on a tear, and it's pretty badass. They're fighting everything, punching their way around the world. And unfortunately, this includes one of the sadder moments of the series that I honestly didn't think was going to get me as much as it did. But when it happened on screen, obviously Hopper dying, I was actually pretty freaking sad. And so, I mean, I guess I'll just get into these guys throughout the episode. They didn't have as much like plot development with them, but all their scenes were pretty good because it was just good choreographed fighting, specifically with the maidens. Perrin actually has some badass moments too. That, I mean, I guess all those months of the Shynarans paid off. He learned how to fight. I guess we just didn't get to see any of that, but then again, it is what it is. Moving on. So Perrin and them, they run into Ingtar, Loyal, and was it Massima, the other one that was with him? I honestly don't remember. And basically, what they got out of the scene, obviously, was them coming together. But we get this nice line from Loyal where he's like, what about the heroes of today, a.k.a. us? And I really like that. It's kind of maybe a little bit of foreshadowing for the whole Matt reveal later on. Or just that, you know, these people are in their own story. They're writing their own heroic journey. Especially today when they're taking on the city, taking on the shadow. And I thought it was really short and just out of nowhere, but it really packed a lot of heat, and just a nice thing to throw in for Loyal to have this like banger one-liner, and like that those are the reasons everybody loves Loyal, because he doesn't talk that much. Well, yes, he does, but in what he does, though, it's always something good. So Perrin and the Badass Brigade run into Matt, and all of a sudden they have a way to open up the horn. So Matt uses his lockpicking dagger to cut the bad boy up, get it out. And then, you know, he goes off on his thing, but Perrin and them have to hold the armies back. And like I was saying before, Perrin has some really good fight scenes. I mean, this crew is essentially like the close-up fight scene crew for the episode. The show more of like, because they had the Aiel with them, the Shynarans, which, by the way, the Shynarans sword fighting, like Massima, fucking badass. Obviously, the maidens are gangsters. One thing I was a little disappointed with, and maybe I'll save this for the end of it was the whole Ingtar thing, but I'll save that for later. Anyways, yeah, Loyal delivers the one-liner, and then Matt goes his separate way, and these guys will have to fight, and somehow we get Perrin fighting back to back with Dane Bornhold. All right, so for some reason I must have imagined that scene because I couldn't find it, and if it did, it was earlier on than early. I could have sworn Perrin and him were fighting back to back, and then at the end of the episode, obviously, he hates Perrin. Because of this scene where Hopper unfortunately dies protecting Perrin. I didn't think this was gonna happen already, so when it did, I was a bit sad. Valda obviously thinks Perrin is scum of the earth, dark friend, which is fitting from a fucking piece of shit. And so Hopper comes to rescue Perrin, and Father Bornhold cuts Hopper down, and oh boy, was that sad. And just doesn't really, how do I put it into words? I really didn't think this was going to bother me as much as it did, but I almost teared up when I was watching this, and I don't tear up from TV shows very often, stuff like that. So anyways, this was the catalyst of Perrin going into his kind of berserker rage, and he storms off with the axe, and of course Joffrey Bornhold, I think maybe he thinks Valdo is going to take care of it, or I don't know what. He's got his back turned, and Perrin just runs him right in the chest with the axe, and this sets Dane off. And the way he's just screaming, "Two rivers, two rivers!" He's like, "No!" That was really good shit. And for Perrin's storyline and setting that up, I thought this overall little couple scenes were pretty darn good. I didn't have anything negative to say about Perrin's storyline really in this entire episode, right up until like the Captain America shield thing at the end seemed a little goofy, and I guess I'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, so looking at it again, it's Perrin gets in there just in time as Egwene's shield kind of opens up because she can't hold it and blocks a firebolt. So I guess that's not so bad because the rest of the shield, like the rest of Egwene's shield, is still there. Kind of curious just about these guys being able to defend Ishamael, but I'll get into that when I talk about Rand and Egwene. But overall, very satisfying story arc from Perrin in this episode, from someone that hasn't been around all season almost. And I think it really is going to catapult him into the next season for those storytelling or those storylines. Hopefully they figure out how to do the transition into that well, but looking forward to that. Good Perrin episode. All right, let's talk about Egwene, because her storyline has consistently been one of the ones I've liked the most throughout this season. And it kind of sticks true here. Basically, she's still defiant to Rhaena until the point of her threatening to cut her tongue out. And essentially, they are called to be the mortar firing squad from the very top of the tower to defend it. And the way that she just is looking at Rhaena in this, and just the level of defiance that she is still sticking with, because now it's been months at this time, and Rhaena is obviously, she is kind of getting some heat maybe for not being able to control her Damane, which happens at the end of this. And overall, just very solid stuff from Egwene. And then just one thing at the very end that I didn't quite care for, and I will probably talk about that more than I'm actually going to talk about the things I liked, just because her stuff was kind of pretty straightforward, albeit very well done. I did almost forget to talk about her having her braid cut off. Obviously, Rhaena is just like, oh, this will hurt you more than cutting out your tongue, maybe, which, I mean, hair grows back, but tongues don't. But there is a significant emotional thing with the Two Rivers hair, it being, a sign of her being part of the women's circle or whatever, yada, 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 having your hair braided. So that is a pretty big deal. But so Rhaena cuts that off, and it makes Egwene have the big sad, and kind of sets things up for maybe going her own way in the future. I don't know. It is what it is. It was supposed to just have the emotional impact, which I think it did. But at the same time, she's also literally like a slave. And I don't know. I'd rather have my hair cut off than my tongue. That's for sure. And they're basically being ordered to launch these mortars and stuff down into the city, and Egwene is having an emotional ability with this until she spots the white cloaks that she can send her mortars down at. So she hurls this big old chunk down, and Rena turns and she goes, "Good girl." And just the way that this actor delivered that line, like, was gross, and it was believable, but it was gross. And because the smile on her face, because Egwene's been fighting her all episode, and now in their big stage or whatever, she sends it down, and she's just so excited, which is a very big turn towards the end of this, where apparently Egwene and them were supposed to defend the giant boulder coming down, when if you look at this screen, they're all set up in an arc. So I don't know how it's Egwene's fault that this fucking catapult boulder makes it past everybody else. That's a bit silly to me, but regardless, Egwene starts to have reservations towards the end again, and she basically goes to stand up to Rena and say, no, she's not going to do this. Kill me. I can't kill all these innocent people with my fireballs. And the boulder, the catapult boulder comes in and just blows the place to shreds. And then we get this confrontation between the two, which is my second most controversial piece, I think, actually, from Egwene's arc, which overall very satisfactory, but it gets interesting. How can Egwene put the collar on Rena if she is thinking of it as like harming her or as some type of weapon? I feel like she shouldn't have been able to put the collar on her. That's my biggest concern with this. Is this how it happened? I don't know. So she puts the collar on Rena, and I honestly don't know if this is how it happens in the books, but shouldn't she not be able to put it on because she would be viewing it as a way to harm Rena? No? Anyways, so basically she gets it on her, and then she force chokes Rena, strangles her to the point where she's basically like, release my collar or I'll keep fucking choking you. And she does. Egwene's collar is released, and she is free. But she still has control over Rena, and this actually surprised the shiza out of me. She lets her hang. She essentially hangs her. And obviously, I have no sympathy for the Sanshan and what they do. But for Egwene to follow through with this, I was actually very surprised. But then again, I don't blame her. This lady has basically tortured her the entire time and treated her like a slave and a dog. And so for her to follow through with it, I am not going to hold it against her, because fuck this chick. She definitely deserved to die. Almost forgot, the confirmation that the Suldam can channel is given in this, but it's just they channel so weakly that it can't be picked up when they do their tests for women that can channel. But it is why the bracelets work for them. The Dom work, because all of these Sanshan that think that the channelers are dogs and terrible people, well, it turns out so are you. You fucking hypocrites. And they kind of show Suroth. She can sense Moiraine's weaves coming, I'm pretty sure. Maybe she doesn't want to say anything. I don't know. But so she can probably channel too. I think we actually went over this, that she says she has a Damane. But anyway, so that means she can channel. But this was a big development for the series going forward, and keep that in mind. Anyways, this back and forth with Egwene just staring her down while the life leaves her body was pretty intense. And once again, Madeline Madden is my favorite actress in this show. The way she just holds herself, the way they write her is better than everyone else, I think, too. It's generally more faithful to things. Obviously, the way things were set up in this episode, different locations, different spots for the events to happen. But damn, was Egwene's character arc this season. In my opinion, the best one, the most satisfying, the most faithful, and overall just the best delivered. And I don't think it's Nynaeve would probably be the second closest, but I just don't think there's enough there to come close to what Egwene went through. So loved this for her. I'm just gonna be blunt about this. Egwene standing up to Ishamael. I don't know about that. Unless Ishamael is like crazy weak, because we know by now that he had broken the seals. So maybe that ate up all of his power. But then again, he thought he was going to be fighting Rand. So I don't know what the deal is here. My only way that I can cope with this is saying that Ishamael was crazy weak, because this just should not be a thing unless after the fact we're exposed to like some information we didn't know. I'm just going to bank on the fact that he's weakened, because this was a bit much for me. And this is probably my only real negative from Egwene's storyline, other than the whole collar, how the collar thing worked out. But this was pretty big. Does this mean that she's going to be on a more even foothold with Rand going forward? I don't know. I don't want to get too into it and like bury it in case it literally is just she was weak. But I just hope that's the case. And I think I'm just going to move on to Rand's storyline, because this was pretty rough in my opinion. Rand al'Thor, the dragon reborn, as we see at the end of this episode. Albeit, definitely my most controversial things revolve around Rand in this episode. Some great things happen with Rand in this episode, but they're just at the end, I was scratching my head a little bit. I'm going to be very blunt about that. But it starts off with them in the ways, and basically Lanfear kicks the other guys out, is kind of trying to convince Rand that he can still trust her and how things are going to go down. My critical part of this scene is I didn't think you could travel out of the ways, and she doesn't like open a gateway or anything. They just like instant transmission. Whatever, I guess. I don't know. That's the least of my worries in this episode. But yeah, so basically still trying to recruit Rand. There's really not a whole lot to break down of Rand in the beginning of this episode. He's sneaking his way through the city. He's got his little hood on and stuff like this. And, you know, he almost kind of looks like Nynaeve with his hood up like that. And, you know, he sees Egwene. She's got her hair chopped off. He's kind of trying to follow her so he can rescue her. And all this sneaking around eventually leads him to a confrontation with Turok, which I guess no one ever stopped him before he went into this palace courtyard or anything like that. And this High Lord was just out and about for a stroll. But anyways, regardless, we get the next scene, which is something that I laughed my ass off at. So Rand's big sword battle with Turok, where he is supposed to have the heron-marked blade, and this is going to be his first actual blade battle, where he only fights with his sword in the void, and he somehow ended up beating Turok in the books, which I'm going to be honest, made no sense that he was able to beat him, unless I go back and read, and there's like some special thing that happens that is the reason why Turok like misses or something. But in the show's rendition, it's this kind of one-on-one confrontation, and Rand just whips the power up and just kills them all. And I'm not going to lie, people are going to be mad at me. I liked this. It made no sense how Rand could possibly be a blade master at this point for him to win this sword fight. And I know I'm a critic of them showing zero training with Rand and the sword so far. I think that is going to be one of the biggest misses of the show in the first 2 seasons, is the boys not getting any screen time playing with their swords. And regardless, Rand just wipes the floor with them with the power. It's super anticlimactic. I actually bursted out laughing because I honestly liked it so much. I was laughing for like a minute straight. And obviously the speaker knifes himself then, because that's what they do. But this was quite a scene. I'm gonna post like my separate reaction to the episode video because there's only like a couple good reactions. This was probably my favorite one because I just couldn't stop. But anyways, and then the way Rand just walks around these guys when they're dead, like he just does not have time to give a single fuck about any of these people. He is focused on Egwene. So Rand makes it to the tower where Egwene is, but she's already taken care of things. They have this little meeting, and then Ishamael shows up. And he tosses Egwene to the side like it's nothing. He tosses Rand to the side like it's nothing. And they've set up this thing where Lanfear is basically going to betray Ishamael. So he just pulls the plug on this entire turning of the wheel and is like, fuck it, I'll kill Rand and wait for the next round. Got my own opinions on that. I don't know how I feel about it. But essentially, he sets it up so the Sanshan are going to shield and gentle Rand. So they're shielding him, and he's up on the tower, and I don't know, man. I'm like out of breath from this sentence, but I just did not vibe with this at all. I don't know what the point was. So Ishamael has him shielded, and he's trying to pitch him to come to the dark again, but, Rand isn't giving in. The line about him being, like lose, and then we have the scene where Matt comes up and unfortunately runs Rand through because it was an illusion, and we have Ishamael basically being disappointed that Rand couldn't see it. And like I said, this good emotion for the whole Matt scene and stuff like that. And I guess if Rand is shielded, how the fuck would he be able to see any of that? Can they see? No, they can see weaves when they're shielded, I think. But still, regardless, I mean, he's young, he doesn't know things. The way this whole scene was kind of set up, I just don't vibe with it at all. At all. And see, this is one thing about men's viewings. It's an accident. Men's viewings aren't finite. They can be interpreted different ways. Things can play out different. It's kind of like Aes Sedai talk, where it's like, yeah, that's what I said, but how it happened or went about isn't necessarily going to be the same. I'm just going to talk about this as part of Rand's storyline. Egwene being the one that has the better showdown with the Ishamael above the city, being able to stand up to him while Rand is the damsel in distress. Like, I get it. Like, we're tired. Like, I don't like to get into stuff like this, but there's the Wheel of Time story. And for me, this almost borderlined on just like changing stuff up for why? Just why? Egwene is the badass of this entire season. She has the badass things. She has like all the badass moments. And we have I guess Rand had the thing with Turok, but like that is a side thing they put on. It doesn't vibe with me that Egwene is having the epic showdown with Ishamael above fucking the city, and she can stand up to Ishii, and I just it doesn't vibe with me. I don't know about you guys. Like, yeah, it looks cool and stuff, and it's probably good TV, but like if you're watching this and think, that's pretty good, that's a good story and stuff like that, but I'm not going to sit here and say that people can write a better story than RJ did, because I just don't think they can. And it might be good, but I think the Wheel of Time story is great. You can write a good story, write a good thing, and I guess the climax of this, the book 2 wasn't like that great of a book climax. Like, they have the sword battle above in like the sky and stuff, and the way it's done, I don't know, but like, I think I'm just rambling at this point. You either agree with me or you disagree with me. And you're welcome to tell me why. But for me, this was like one of the biggest misses of the episode, and it's the reason that it turned me from loving this finale into liking it, but having this big reservation. And it's just one, and there's one more thing too, but besides the point, I don't know, man. It just wasn't for me. But we do have Rand with his palm on his blade, pushing it into a Shamael, which he had full control of things that are going on right now. So I guess I don't know why he would have his hand on his blade like that. Unless that's a sword thing that I just don't know about. So anyways, he gets the brand, the Heron Mark brand on his hand, which is pretty nifty. Sword's on fire. Now, watching this a second time, this might just be all a part of Shamael's plan, because he just kind of gives up and lets Rand stab him. Like, Rand is finally able to embrace the source, but he's not like blocking anything. Shamael just stops attacking him. So maybe that's part of the plan, and maybe my aggravations are unwarranted because it's all part of the greater plan of Shamael and the forces of the dark. I just hope so. Like, I'll play the fool, I'll be the fool if that's the case. I would love that. But it still felt so goofy. I don't know. Anyways, so he stabs the Shamael and he dies and fades to ash. He doesn't come back like Lanfear did, which is questionable, to say the least. But whatever. You do get that sweet little moment where Shamael is dying on the ground and he is just embraced by the idea of nothing. And he's just so happy about it. Controversial opinion part 2. So Moiraine is weaving this weave from like a mile and a half away across the harbor, and it's this giant fiery illusion above the city of this giant ass dragon. I don't know about this one, Chief. Obviously it looks cool. It just feels goofy. I'm sorry. It's probably badass if you haven't watched. I don't know. There's too much. I wish I didn't know a goddamn thing about the books in anything, or even, I don't know. This in the Egwene thing kind of really soured my opinion at the end of the episode, and let me know what you think about that. But it's just the truth. It's how I feel. Everyone is welcome to feel different. I still liked the episode. It's just these instances made me scratch my head quite a bit, and maybe they just weren't for me. I'm going to get in some honorable mentions here. Moggy, they do a phenomenal job introducing her. The way she just like stares down Lanfear, is talking all creepy. She kind of has like the black hair. I don't know, obviously because I'm predetermined this, spider look to her. The way she's like weaving the webs between her fingertips, and she like weaves that thing around Lanfear. Pretty badass, not gonna lie. And just the way Lanfear is like creeped out by it. And the fact that the rest of them are released too. This was pretty fucking cool. And a great reveal at the end of the episode to kind of keep you on the edge of their seat. And I'm glad they had this, because I was kind of soured on the ending. This brought me fully back into like at the end. I was like, oh, let's go. And pretty damn cool. And I can't wait to see the other actors and actresses for the Forsaken be shown to us and play out. This one is probably a negative from the episode, but Ingtar, he has this thing where he tries to hold off the army. There's stuff he admits in the books before he has this stand that I don't know if it's going to be a spoiler or not for me to say it. And so I'm not going to, but it really brought a lot of his character depth to light. And the fact, when he's talking to Perrin about forgiving the Shinarans in the one episode, in episode 2 or 1, for that, the lines of dialogue that he's supposed to say before his death and things he says, to not be in here feels like a miss to me. And that's, I don't know if you guys agree with me on that, but this felt like a kind of a miss. Just another couple lines that could have been in here. I know they probably had to cut a lot of scenes for this episode, but like, come on. That was a big one for this character, and it's not like you have to worry about him anymore. You couldn't just add it in. You know, we had Uno jumping, the amount of time it took for Uno to jump down and like block for Perrin and be like, of course I'm a hero of the Horde. I would have rather it been spent on Ingtar's character here. So that's a bummer to me. Hopper. I was not expecting to be so emotionally distraught when this happened, but I did almost cry, and that's generally not something that happens when I'm watching movies or TV. But the way they showed his eyeballs and him laying on the floor, and Perrin, the actor for Perrin, Marcus, his reaction to it was so good that I was emotionally torn to pieces by this. And then they show the Hopper ghost hopping and then eventually being able to soar into the night sky. That got me. The fact that they included that in there was a nice touch. I did not think Hopper was going to be dying already. I know a lot of people pretty much thought it was coming. I was kind of in denial because I thought it was a little early for that, but I guess we will see how it plays out when it comes to Perrin's storytelling. And yeah, going forward, this was a sad one, and I'm gonna miss this guy. He's so cute. The Heroes of the Horn scene was predominantly good to me, but the way it was kind of set up on these ramparts with this goofy Sanchan charging army at Matt, and then they all are standing up on, and the fact that, you know, there's only, it looks like maybe there's like 15 of them or something like that. That is something to consider. Obviously, they all have like supernatural ghost abilities. Uno comes back as a hero for the Horn. I like how they did like the whiskey smoke thing behind them to kind of show that they were like supernatural. Archer Hawkwing in this scene, like I'm watching this again, like he looks like a gangster. This is sweet. Like his armor is sick. I don't remember the names of the other people. Like, is Gadel Kane in here? I don't know if we're supposed to think that, but there is somebody in here, a certain blonde archer, that I wonder if that's gonna be the actress of. I'm not gonna get into that, but anyways, we get Birgitta in this. Yeah, there she is, in all of her glory. I assume that's her. But anyways, then Matt gets his memories back. He's all of a sudden he's a quarterstaff G, and I liked everything after the immediate summoning was a little funky to me, but everything after that was pretty sweet. Like the way they show all of these people fighting together was badass, and I liked a lot of that. Obviously you can't have 100 on 100 charge like they do in the books. You know, it's easier to write paper than pay a bunch of actors and put them in costumes and have it work out. I understand the medium and having to do this, but it seemed like, you know, the way they hype it up, it seems like it should be more. But regardless, and you know, they use them to take out like 50 Sanchan or something like that versus an entire army. So while the presentation of the Heroes of the Horn was awesome, the actual thing of how it went on was not quite what I pictured it, but like I get why it is this way. I understand that. So yeah, those are essentially my thoughts and feelings on the season finale in episode 8 of season 2 of The Wheel of Time. I really liked the episode for the most part. I thought it was good. I thought a lot of the character arcs were really cool, but there was just like 4 or 5 kind of unique choices or things that just didn't quite make sense, that felt off to me. Like a lot of these books, like they're written so that they make sense. Like people don't make like the military decisions. There aren't things that just kind of happen. I guess there are, because when they do Robert Jordan, it's just like, oh, it was Matt just getting lucky. Haha. Um, I think like the big things I didn't like were like Moiraine just being able to fireball the entire fleet from a mile away. The giant dragon illusion, I guess, just felt off for me, or maybe her doing it. Egwene being able to hold back the Forsaken, I'm critical on that, but like I said, maybe that's part of Ishamael's plan, was to let that happen, because he literally does just let Rand stab him. But he gives that, oh, you think you can stand up to a Forsaken? I don't know about that one, Chief. And I think honestly that was like the biggest. I probably said what my other stuff was, but I did really enjoy so much in this episode. Rand just mince meeting Turok, Egwene standing up to Rena. I thought all that was really good. Oh yeah, the her with the collar thing. I don't know about that. Egwene and Elayne doing that undercover mission. Marcus Rutta, I mean Perrin, his axe fighting and his fighting and stuff in this was well choreographed, and I thought he, of all of them, minus Nynaeve, probably had like the best like development in this episode. Well, Matt too. Matt developed a lot in this episode. He's the horn sounder now. But the Avengers, Emmonsfield Avengers or whatever, kind of standing up together at the end of the book. I saw someone, it's a good thing Rand walked over here so people could see him as the dragon or whatever. But, I mean, whatever. I'm not going to get too much into that. Like, that is what it is. Some of it felt a little silly. Most of it felt badass, cool, well choreographed. Costume design was out of this world. The set design was great. The location was great. I thought Falm looked awesome. I think the fleet in the background was really well done. Moiraine channeling on the beach and like the weaves in the water and stuff was very great to look at. It was nice to watch. It was just the implications of it, the things going around. But I think you get the gist. I think this was a good ending to the season. It could have been a great ending. It could have been great if it just some of that goofiness wasn't there, in my opinion. It still was very good. And it was a very good season. And I think this was a strong fucking way to catapult into 3. I hope they really buckled down on trying to follow some of those lines. I understand they have to cut things out. But regardless, I'm just so looking forward to season 3. I hope they keep this momentum. I hope they, I hate to say this, I hope they figure out whose writing gets the best, like, feedback from people. And maybe let them get a few more episodes. I don't know. But on that note, let me know if you don't agree with some of my criticisms. Let me know if you agree. Let me know if you don't agree with some of my praises. I know this is going to be a hot topic for people, and I can't wait to hear from others and talk about it for the next year and a half. Oh my God. Is it 3 filmed yet? Is it written? I don't know. Anyways, I'm babbling. Thank you for watching this, and I will see you in the next one. I'll probably upload my reactions to this episode. Anyways, later. Have a good day.